Welcome to Complete BS, the official podcast of couch coaches everywhere. Not just football. It's every sport that ruins your parlay, wrecks your fantasy week, and still brings you back for more. Buzzer beaters, blown leads, and brackets and flames. Yeah, we're all over it. Unfiltered takes, armchair analysis, and enough bold opinions to fill a playbook. Hosted by Brian Schmuck, sports junkie, the Saban of stats, and your official voice of, I could coach better than that. Let's go.
Couch Coach Nation Week 12 is in the books. We've got 2 Saturdays left in the regular season. We had 6 ranked teams lose over the weekend and a couple of others that barely got a win over far inferior teams. I'm looking at you, Texas A&M, Georgia Tech, and Michigan. YouTube TV and Disney finally made up and all seems to be right with the world. I saw Pete Thamels reporting that Maryland is going to stick with Mike Locksley, and I think this is a really good move. They're going to invest more into him and more into the program, their NIL. I think he's a really good coach. He loves it there. He's got tons of ties in the area. Had they moved on from Locksley, I don't know that they would do better, but he would only be out of a job for about 30 minutes. It's a good move by Maryland to keep him. Kind of refreshing to see that a coach that has had not a great season is getting backed by their athletic director, by their school, and we're just not recycling and going through coaches left and right. So good move by Maryland. A lot of buzz around Virginia Tech and James Franklin, but there also seems to be maybe Virginia Tech's not Franklin's top choice. Maybe he's got something else in mind. This week, I think we'll see a little bit more light come to bear on that and which direction he might be leaning. Also, we launched CouchCoachNation.com this week. It's an online community for football fans to come and engage with each other and share what we love about college football, all things college football. We had an online chat going on Saturday from 10 a.m. to just after the end of the Texas-Georgia game. Head over to www.couchcoachnation.com and join the nation. AV, how was your Saturday of football?
It's a beautiful Saturday, man. Spent all day watching college football. I enjoyed being on the chat, by the way. I was part of that. And yeah, it's a good time just kicking around what's going on in every game and coaching carousel and all the different stuff that Brian just mentioned. So that was fun. Jump on there if you can. But yeah, it was a good Saturday. We had some upsets in the SEC, some near upsets in some other places, a G5 shakeup. So always good, man.
We'll start with the G5, and Navy got a win over USF 41-38. Knocks USF out of the playoff mix, but probably knocks them out of their conference championship game contention. Navy, they don't throw the ball a whole lot, but they were very efficient in the first half. 5 of 8 for 123 yards. That's 15.4 yards per attempt. Very un-Navy-like. They did have 168 yards at the half, and they're up 24-9. You would expect with that kind of score and the way that Navy runs the ball and dominates, that time of possession would be in their favor, but USF actually had the ball 4 more minutes in the first half. Fast forward to the end of the game, the two teams combined for over 1,000 yards of offense. Navy had 338 on the ground. They didn't control the clock in the first half, but at the end of the day, second half, they outpaced USF 11 more minutes in time of possession. They dominated the second half. USF, when they had the ball, they had to try and score quick. They were constantly playing catch up. Byron Brown did all he could do, threw for 327 yards and 2 touchdowns, ran for 136 and another 2 touchdowns. His defense couldn't get off the field and couldn't get him a stop. Todd Orlando, USF defensive coordinator, this game's on you. You got to help your team out and get a stop. You know what they're doing with the triple option. They do it better than anybody else. I get it, but you have got to put your team in a position to make some stops. USF, again, you're out of the CFP. North Texas, I think you're in the driver's seat. Tulane, you're right there. Navy, maybe East Carolina. And then when we're talking the playoff, maybe James Madison in there as well. AV, how do you see this game?
I thought it was one of the more fun games to watch. Like, there was a lot of scoring, a lot of offense, some drama. The game was close towards the end, kind of back and forth. But the takeaway to me was what a missed opportunity for USF. I mean, they were the highest ranked G5 team. They win this game. The schedule sets up nice. They probably cakewalk into the college football playoff. And then they couldn't get it done. And I'm with you. I'm a little disappointed in Todd Orlando that he couldn't slow them down a little bit. Because you score 38 points, you should win, right? Like 10 out of 10 times, you should win that game. game, but they scored 41. Navy did. So I get the Navy's a good team, and they're not easy to beat, and it was on the road. But yeah, man, you know what they're going to do. I think the difference in the game, though, was they had some success throwing the ball early. That probably threw off USF's defense. They probably didn't think that they would have that type of success, and then when they did, they had to change some things, and then they started running on them. But great game. Disappointed for USF that they're not going to get to the playoffs. Disappointed in the defense and the defensive coordinator. Like you said, Byron Brown almost had 500 yards of offense himself, so great game for both offenses.
It was by far, I think, one of the top 2 or 3 games of the day. Really enjoyed that game. Also in that noon window, Notre Dame 37, Pitt 15, kind of a late touchdown to make it a little bit closer. Pitt was held to only 7 yards rushing in the first half, a total of 75 yards. Pitt and Pat Narduzzi, they chose to kick a field goal when they were down 14-0. It was 4th and 4 from their 6. You got to send a message to your team that we're here to win, not kick field goals. We're here to get touchdowns. And also that you believe in your defense, that if you don't get the ball in, we're going to pin them deep in their own territory and we're going to get the ball back. I really question that call of kicking the field goal down 14-0. Pitt, they went 0 for 7 on third downs in the first half and 0 for 13 for the game. Pitt was never in this game. They were totally outclassed. Notre Dame did whatever they wanted to do. I know they've got 2 losses to start the year. That happened with a freshman quarterback in his first 2 career starts against ranked teams. I can promise you, this is a team nobody wants to face in the playoffs. They are just rolling through much like they did last year. They're hot at the right time. I think this is a really strong Notre Dame team. They're 100% in the playoffs. They've got Syracuse and Stanford the next 2 weeks, which should be cakewalks. Jeremiyah Love, we've talked about him a bunch. I think he's the best player in the country. I know, AV, you've said that too, but he's not going to win the Heisman, I don't believe. He's not playing in that championship weekend when everybody else who's up for it is going to be playing. Notre Dame athletic director, you're not going to join a conference. You need to find somebody else that you can play on championship weekend to make sure your team is playing and you're being talked about. Right now, that's UConn. UConn is also an independent. You need to schedule UConn every week to be playing on that championship Saturday. Neither one of you's in a conference. Play the game and make sure your team is playing that Saturday. AV, what did you think about Notre Dame and Pitt?
We talked about it a little bit on the preview that Pitt, they were on a winning streak, was it 5 or so games, but they hadn't really played anybody, right? So this was the first real test since they lost to Louisville in September, and they failed miserably. They weren't in the game at all. Mason Heinzel looked like a freshman that was going up against a good defense. And credit to the defense of, especially the back 7 of Notre Dame. There weren't open receivers to throw to. So I'm not putting it all on Heinzel, but the offense just couldn't get it going. Looked dysfunctional. Like you said, they kicked the field goal, now 14-0. On the other side, Love is the best player on the field every time they get on the field. He already has over 1,100 yards rushing, over 1,400 total yards, 17 touchdowns. I mean, it's unbelievable the season he's putting together. You're right, he's not going to win the Heisman for sure. You know, Notre Dame is going to be in the playoff, and I think they deserve to be in the playoff. So this is a little bit of a question without criticism. But, like, what is their best win? Southern Cal? Because after that, it's Pitt, Boise State, Navy. They don't have any great wins. So as good as they've looked, there's still some wondering there on how good they actually are, but they've locked up their playoff berth, and they've earned it.
Moving on in the 3:30 window, Oklahoma 23, Alabama 21. I'm here to eat some humble pie. I did not believe in Oklahoma. I did not believe in the Oklahoma defense. And when you look at the stats in this game, Bama almost doubled them up in offensive production. They held the ball 9 more minutes. They were more efficient on 3rd and 4th down. How did they lose? Alabama had 1 pick and 2 fumbles lost. In the first quarter, Bama had a pick 6. For Oklahoma to go up 10-0. Bama was forced to punt. Oklahoma then causes a fumble. 2 plays later, now you're up with a touchdown, 17-7. Late in the 3rd quarter, Bama's actually up 21-20 and a fumble, which leads to an OU field goal to take the lead 23-21. That was the story of the game. Bama dominated in yards. They dominated in time of possession. They just went up and down the field, but they kept turning the ball over. The OU defense and special teams, they created turnovers, and then they were able to capitalize on them, and that got them the win.
Yeah, so one of the things that I mentioned in the preview was, and I was saying how, like, I think Bama's the better team, and I would take them on a neutral field, given the points and all that. The stats kind of played that out, that I think they still are the better team. Just like I think Alabama's a better team over Florida State, even though Florida State beat them. But what I did say was the one way that Oklahoma could win this game was if they get some sacks on Ty Simpson. And I think what I said was that it ends drives and it hurries him up. Well, not only did it end drives and hurry him up, but it created turnovers. It created an interception, created a fumble on a strip sack. It was a little erratic on his accuracy down the field. So the turnovers were the difference in the game, but I also think that the pressure that they put on him created the turnovers and was the difference in the game. I thought, like, watching the game, that John Mateer looked really good and he was back to his early season form. But then when you look at the stats, he only had like 138 yards passing and 23 yards rushing. So he played a good, efficient game. He was like 15 of 23 or something, but he held on to the ball. He didn't turn it over. And those stats can be a little misleading because they only had 51 plays. Oklahoma only ran 51 plays, so your stats aren't going to be great. But that was a good win for Venables, good win for Oklahoma. Now you look at, like, we talked about how the back half of their schedule was like murderer's row, but when you look at Missouri and LSU, their last two games, those don't seem like murderer's row anymore. Like, it seems doable. So I think there's a good chance they could win out. Now, they could drop one of those games. They're both still good teams, but I think they could win out, and they're in a good spot, man.
Yeah, and I know it won't make Oklahoma fans happy. I've got Oklahoma in the playoff right now. I still have Alabama ranked ahead of them. I think Alabama's still the better team. I know they went to Alabama and they won. Oklahoma did. I still have Alabama just slightly ahead of them. I think they're both in the playoffs. If they win out, we'll see where it goes from there. The nightcap, the big showdown everyone was looking forward to, Georgia 35, Texas 10. This game never felt close. Aside from the opening drive where Texas went down 13 plays and 59 yards to kick a field goal, that's it. Then Georgia responded with a 9-play drive, 75 yards. They get a touchdown, they take the lead, and they never look back. It was only 14-3 at half. The third quarter, there wasn't a whole lot going on there. A couple of punts. Texas got a pick and converted that into a touchdown, cut the deficit down to 14-10. But the momentum didn't really swing back the other way, because then Georgia responded after that with a 10-play drive for a touchdown, extended the lead 21-10. Then the game-changing play. Kirby Smart calls the onside kick, and it was executed flawlessly by Georgia. They recovered the kick, took it 53 yards, went up 28-10. Texas had their heart ripped out. They were done for. Georgia adds another touchdown just for good measure, close it out 35-10. Georgia controlled the clock. They were disciplined. They only committed one penalty to Texas's 9 penalties. They were efficient running the ball. They only had 5 incompletions all game. More on that later when we get to game balls. Kirby and Georgia, they gave Texas a master class again for the third time in 13 months. This isn't the Big 12, Texas. AV, what do you got?
I think that, and this is a bit of a hot take, but I think that Steve Sarkisian has a little Mike Norvell in him. And what I mean is they both know X's and O's. They're both offensive guys, and, I think good offensive minds, right? And even Norvell, I think Sarkisian gets a little more credit, but I think they're both good offensive minds, but both of their teams play soft. One of the things I mentioned in the preview was that Georgia didn't rush the passer very well, and that they could keep up Arch Manning. And Georgia they only got 1 sack, and that was by KJ Bolden, the safety. So Arch Manning was on his feet. They did get pressure on him, but he had a solid game. He 270 yards or whatever, and a touchdown and interception, not bad. But then they ran the ball for 23 yards. How, with all those NFL bodies on your offensive line, Wisner and Baxter should be able to run the ball for 23 yards with 0 offensive line? Like, they could pull that off. Like, how do you have all of those big bodies, big athletic bodies, and not be able to run the ball? And then on the flip side, on the defensive front seven, big athletic bodies everywhere and get bullied all over the place. So I thought that was the difference in the game. I will say, I think you mentioned the onside kick, which was the turning point for sure, but I think there was an underrated turning point right before that where it was 14-10. Georgia had the ball. Texas makes a stop, and they're going to get the ball back. But it's 4th and 5. Georgia decides to go for it. And on 4th and 5, they jump off sides, which gives Georgia free play, which they throw down the field and get a pass interference. So two penalties on a 4th and 5. Next play, touchdown. Next play, onside kick. Snowball effect, game over. So that's what I saw, man. I saw a team in Texas that once again got bullied, even though they have the bigger, stronger, faster guys.
And Texas should be out of the playoff conversation. I don't care if they pull off an upset and beat Texas A&M. You got 3 losses. You're done. You're not in the playoff conversation anymore. There's absolutely no reason why, even whatever happens in these next 2 weeks, that they should be able to climb back in. If they do, it is complete SEC bias. Herbstreit was even talking about it during the broadcast late in the game, how Texas could get back into the playoff conversation. That is trying to stack the deck for the SEC. Texas is done. Move on. Game balls, I said we would get to it. I'm going to start off with Gunnar Stockton, quarterback for Georgia. Only 5 incompletions. My man went 24 of 29 for 229 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, added 6 carries, 29 big yards, and a rushing touchdown. He accounted for every Georgia touchdown in a top 10 matchup. You do that, Gunnar Stockton, you get a game ball. My other one goes to Kewan Lacey, the running back for Ole Miss. 31 carries, 224 yards, 3 touchdowns. Going in the fourth quarter, Ole Miss was down 4. Lacey got 81 of his yards in the fourth quarter and 2 of those touchdowns to put the game away, give Ole Miss the win over Florida, and have them continue marching towards the college football playoff. AV, how about you? You got a game ball?
Yeah, but before I start, let me just say that Kewan Lacey deserves to be in New York for the Heisman ceremony right next to Jeremiyah Love. Those 2 are unbelievable running backs and maybe the 2 best players in the country. My game balls go to a tandem, Blake Horvath and Eli Heidenreich. That's the 1-2 combo that Navy used to beat USF this week. Horvath had, I think, 147 yards passing, and Heidenreich had 146 yards receiving. So they were lethal early on. They were throwing the ball early and often. And in the game of the week that probably had the most playoff impact directly, with 3 weeks left, they showed up big and won a big game, and it was an exciting game, and hats off to both. They've been doing it together for a long time, too.
Well, I've got questions, and I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier on in our season, but I'm going back to South Carolina. And when I had questions earlier on, it was for Shane Beamer. Well, I still have questions, but I don't think Shane Beamer, you can answer them. My questions are for Jeremiah Donathy, the South Carolina Director of Athletics. You came from TCU. You're making $1.9 million a year. You haven't been on the job a year. I don't have a beef with you, but I do have questions about your football program. This is a team that was in the upper echelon of preseason polls. Coach Shane Beamer has led them to a 3-7 season so far, and they've got Coastal Carolina and Clemson left. I'm not convinced that you can beat Coastal or Clemson. You might be a 3-9 team. Then you just had number 3 on the ropes, on the road, a 27-point halftime deficit, and Beamer squandered it. Is Shane Beamer who you want to lead your program moving forward? This is the same guy who thought it was a good idea to hire Mike Shula in the offseason as an offensive coordinator, and he didn't even make it the season because he's not a good coach, and everywhere he goes, he has the same results. But that's who Beamer picked, and he since fired him. How does Shane Beamer look his team in the eyes and get them to follow him? How does he look at them and not think that they gave up on him? And how can you not question the culture of Beamer's program that can give up this kind of lead? You might need to look elsewhere. I'm here to help you with that. I've got some names for you. Names like Jeremy Chadwell, Bob Chesney, Clay Helton, Eric Morris, Ryan Silverfield, Manny Diaz, if you want head coaching experience. Or maybe you want to go the coordinator route, and Mike Shanahan, Drew Connick, or Joe Craddock. I've got questions for the entire South Carolina football program. I think it's time, and Beamer's got to go. AV, who do you got questions for?
Well, I'm going to take the questions I'm going to go a little different this week. I'm going to try to be inspirational with my questions, right? So my questions are for Barry Odom and Purdue University. Now, I'm old enough to remember BS when Purdue was once proud. I remember Drew Brees throwing the ball all over the field to Vinny Sutherland. I remember Mike Allstott running through people. The person who I think was the second greatest defensive back of all time. I consider Deion Sanders the greatest defensive back of all time. Number 2, I would put Rod Woodson. He's from Purdue. They've won conference championships. They've won a Rose Bowl. There's some pride there in Purdue. Well, they have a bye week this week coming up and only one game left after the bye week. The bye week comes at a perfect time because they're on a current 9-game losing streak. They went 2-0 and then now they're 2-9. So here's the good news. The good news is you didn't look like they've lost in all kinds of ways. They got blown out by Notre Dame, but they scored 30. They lost 50-something to 30-something, right? They scored 27 on Illinois. They played Michigan close, 21-16. They've gotten shut out. They played Ohio State respectable, 34-10. So it's not been all bad. So can you come back from this bye week and win the game and end on a win streak instead of a 10-game lose streak? The bad news is after the bye week, you're playing Indiana. So my question for Barry Odom is, can you rally the troops? You're a defensive guy. Can you take the bye week, really study it, really come up with a creative plan, score some points, and end the year on a win streak instead of a lose streak? I don't think so, but I'm rooting for you. I'm actually going to root for Purdue in that game.
All right, everybody. Well, remember to head over to www.couchcoachnation.com and join the nation. You can follow Complete BS Pod on X and Instagram. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to Complete BS. Be sure to subscribe, share, and follow us online. And tell us what you think of this episode. Use hashtag CouchCoachNation, and let's keep the conversation going.